5,000 people showed up. 5,000 people showed up because they wanted to hear Jesus. And at the end of a couple of days of listening to Jesus, they were hungry. They had used up all their spare lunches. They'd used up all their extra change. They'd done everything. They were out somewhere where there was no fast food places, and they were hungry. And Jesus saw to it that he took a few loaves and a few fishes and fed 5,000 people. And they were all full. They had a fantastic fish sandwich with bread and fish. It was delicious. It was better than McDonald's. It was fantastic. And they were all full. And how do you think those people felt after they were full and they've been following Jesus and listening to him for a few days? Yeah, they were feeling good, and they decided, you know what? This is fantastic. Jesus is the Messiah. We're going to make him king. And so they were all happy. And the disciples, if you were one of the main guys, like if you were following this guy, you thought he was the Messiah, and then all of a sudden there was 5,000 people there. That's bigger than Gold. Is that bigger than Golden Hills? I don't know. That'd be a big church, right? 5,000 people showing up. Not only that, but there was women and children. So let's say 15,000 people are there. 15,000 people have ate all. And the disciples are there, and everybody says, "Let's make him king. Let's king this guy. Let's just take over Rome." Would that be pretty exciting? They were very excited. They said, "Okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make him king. Let's force him to do it. Let's say it's time to happen." And so what happened was, it says, "Therefore, Jesus perceived that they were about to come and take him by force and make him king, and he departed again to a mountain by himself alone." So all these people thought they were going to get the jump on Jesus again and force him to be king. And he said, "No, see you later." And he took off up to a mountain by himself. And he didn't go with the plan. Instead, it said that here's what he did. And this story is in 3 different places. It's in the book of Mark, the book of Matthew, and the book of John. It has all different stories. But in Mark it says this: "Immediately he made his disciples get into a boat and go to the other side to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd." So he said, "Okay, here's what's happening. Disciples, you 12, get in our boat, go across." It's like 8 miles across. Would it take very long to paddle 8 miles? All night. Okay? Takes a while to paddle 8 miles. And so he says, "But it's dark. Would you want to go and take off on a boat at dark, Fred?" "No," he says, it's nighttime. Get out of here. I'm not going with you." And all the people were watching. They say, "Wait a minute. Jesus sent them off, and then Jesus went up to the top of the mountain." Now, let me ask you this. If you were one of Jesus' followers and he said, "Look, I want you to go over to the other side of the ocean. I don't want you to stay here. I want you to go there. And it's nighttime and I'm not going with you," how would you be feeling? What would you think? Just go? I'd be thinking, why? We got all these people here that really like us, and they want you to be king, and we're your best. We'll be your main guys in the cabinet. I think we should stay here, Jesus. Maybe just stay here a little while longer instead of going there. How about staying here? But Jesus said, "No, you don't stay here. You go there." And they go, "Okay." We got in the boat and they started going. I'd want to stay here, Fred, but they say go there. Have you ever had to go somewhere and you didn't really know what it was going to be like? One time, Janice and I decided after we moved here that we were going to go to a place called Krispy Kreme. Has anybody ever been there? Oh man, because we heard they had really super good donuts. And so we decided, let's go to Krispy Kreme because there isn't any of those in Pleasanton or Livermore. But we've heard they had them in Brentwood. So we put it in the GPS and we started driving around, and we drove around. You would think it wouldn't be that tough, right? But we drive around, we end up on a dead end somewhere, and it says what's it called? Rerouting. And so we did this like 5 times, rerouting. The GPS couldn't find Krispy Kreme. Finally, this is the truth. I'm not lying. You're not going to believe this, but I'm not lying. Especially you, Alicia, you're not going to believe this, but I'm not lying on this one. We got to a parking lot overlooking the highway, and the GPS said out loud, it hadn't said anything all day, and it said this out loud: "You cannot get there from here." The GPS said that. You cannot get there. Have you ever had a GPS do that? Janice is my witness. It said that. It did say that. You cannot get there. What? both of us were there. Janice and I, we both heard it say, you cannot get there from me. And the words came up as well as, you cannot get. A GPS is supposed to get you where you're going. But it said, you cannot get there from here. Well, the question is for us, okay, Jesus tells us to do something. He says, go. But the question is do we really need to do that? Do we really need to get there from here? Because Jesus was telling them to go out at night and do something hard. So let me read what happened. Here's what it says happened. And after he'd taken his leave, he went up to the mountain to pray. So why did Jesus go up to the mountain to pray instead of going with the disciples at least? He sends them out in the boat by themselves and doesn't even go with them. Why does he go up to the mountain to pray? Anybody got any thoughts on that at all? Why would he go up to the mountain to pray? Well, first of all, he's getting away from all these people that are trying to make him king. But other than that, why? Okay, yeah, usually when you pray, it's because you feel like you need to tell God something. And what did he tell the disciples to do? To go where? Okay, so if he's telling them to go across the water, what are they going to find on the other side of the water? A city, and what do cities have in them? People. Do you think Jesus, when he went up to pray, might have been praying for those people that were about to see him? Do you think he might be praying that they would be ready to hear the good news of the gospel? If we're going to go, and Jesus said you got to go, that's the prime directive. If you don't go, what are you doing? You're disobeying. You're staying, you're disobeying. And so what do you think is the most important thing to do before you go? Pray. And so Jesus was praying, and they were going on the boat. And then this is what happened. It says in Matthew, when the evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was a long way from land, beaten by the waves, for the wind had came up against them. And it was the fourth watch of the night. They were out there beaten by the waves. All of a sudden you're in a boat. Imagine you're in a boat that holds about 12 people, maybe 15 people. It's about 20 feet long. It's about 6 feet wide. It's about 8 feet high. You're in this boat in a huge lake, and a storm comes up, and it's nighttime. You've traveled about 3.5 miles, and all of a sudden it's just like a storm that's knocking that boat around like a toy, like a paper boat in a bathtub. And you're holding on for dear life, and you're hoping you don't get thrown out of the boat, and the wind is going, and it's dark, and how are you feeling right now? You know what I'm thinking? Jesus, what did you do here? You sent me out on this boat. I'm going to die out here. And here's the first miracle that happened. Jesus was up there, and it says in Matthew that he saw them. Can you see at night a boat? Out 3.5 miles, try it. You can't. What? If they have flares, that would have been a good idea, but they hadn't been invented yet, unfortunately. So there they were, no flares, and yet Jesus could see them, the first miracle that happened. Here's what I want you to know. If you decide, you know what? Unlike almost everybody I know, I'm going to actually tell somebody about Jesus. I'm going to tell them about Jesus. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Jesus sent them out into a storm. When you take a step of faith, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because life is going to get tough, because Satan doesn't want you to do that. And so there was a storm, and Jesus knew the storm was coming. He said, I know that you're going to have to. Why would he send them out in a storm? Anybody got any idea? Ooh, that's a pretty good idea, but I don't think there were too many people trying to track them down. That's not a bad guess, though. Why would he send them out in a storm? Yeah, to see if they're going to trust him. And guess what? They didn't. They were saying, help, we're stuck, help us, we're going to die. And so then the next thing that happened here, this is really cool. Let me see if I can read it. And about the fourth watch of the night, that means about 3 o'clock in the morning, he came to them walking on the sea, and he meant to pass them by. So Jesus comes to them, it tells us in Matthew. He walks out there. He's walking. So this is the first miracle is he could see them. The second, now he's walking. How would you walk on waves? If you were going to walk on waves, Miguel, how would you do it? Let's say you have the power to walk on waves. How would you handle it? Walking up? Oh, if they're coming up? Yeah. Here's what I'm thinking. The waves are coming, and you're using the waves as a stair step. So you're like going on the waves, right? Jesus could do that. He's walking out on the waves, and it's like, it said like he was acting like he was just going to pass them by. So here you guys are in the boat. Jesus is walking by, and it's like he doesn't even give them a look. He's just like out there, and he's walking by. He's trying to get them to do something. What do you think he was trying to get them to do? He was trying to get them to say, hey, I don't know what he was trying to get their attention. And here's what it says they thought when they saw him walking by. It says, but when they saw him walking by on the sea, they thought it was a ghost, and they cried out, for they saw him and they were terrified. Here's a guy walking on water. What are you going to think? Somebody's walking on, okay, they thought it was a ghost. But immediately he spoke to them and said, take heart, it's I. Do not be afraid. He says, no problem, it's me, it's just me. Relax, it's me. And when he said, it's me, what he said was this. He said, it's I am. He said, it's just me, I am. You know, he said his name was I am. Have you ever heard that as a name before, Fred? Who said it? God said, I am to Moses, right? And so Jesus now says, it's me, it's I am. He said, he was really saying, it's me, God. And you know what? This happened one other time. I'm going to finish this story in a second. But I want to let you know, these people decided we can't stay here because Jesus told us to go there. I want you to understand, if you're going to be a follower of Jesus, you can't stay here with all those people out there. You've got to figure out a way to go out there. You've got to figure out a way to, unlike my GPS, to get from here to there. Because the answer can't be you can't get here from there. There has to be a way to get there from here. And so, I forgot what I was just going to say, Fred. It was so important. Yes, and that is this. When he said, take heart, don't be afraid. Oh, wait a minute. And something else happened. Something that it only tells us in one place, and that was this. And Peter answered and said, when he said, don't be afraid, Peter answered and said, Lord, I don't know if you know anybody like this. Alicia and I know this guy named Blake, and he's kind of like this. He's kind of like Peter. Most of you guys might not know anybody like this, but here's what Peter said. I would not have said this, but Peter said this, and here's what he said. He said, oh man, I can't find it now. Oh, and Peter said, Lord, if it's you, if that's really you out there, imagine saying this, Mario. If it's really out there, command me to come out onto the water. If it's really you, tell me I can come out there. I see you walking on water and the waves are throwing us all over. Tell me I can come out. And Jesus said, come on. And Peter gets out of the boat, waves going crazy, and he starts to walk, and he's seeing Jesus, and he's going, whoa, this is cool, walking on water. And he's walking on the water. He believed Jesus, and he's walking on the water. And so Peter got out of the boat, and he walked on the water, and he came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, all of a sudden, this is what Blake would do. The same kind of thing. He would jump into something, and then he'd realize, wait a minute, what did I just do? And so he said, but when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and he began to sink, and he cried out, Lord, save me. And Jesus immediately reached out his hand, and he took hold of him, saying, oh, you of little faith. He said, you of little faith. What about the other guys? They stayed in the boat. But he's saying, to Peter, he says, you of little faith, get back in the boat. And he brought him in the boat. Okay, and then here's what it says happened. But and immediately it was calm. And so it became calm. That was the third or fourth miracle there. He calmed them down. You know, this happened one other time. This time Jesus walked to them, but there was another time that Jesus was in a boat. This was the first time this happened, and they were going across. At night again. Why did they go across at night? I don't get that. But anyway, Jesus had a long day, and he got down to the bottom of the boat, and he was asleep. And all of a sudden, this big storm happened, and it was going like crazy. And everybody thought they were going to die. And these were experienced fishermen, and the boat was going so crazy they thought we're going to die. And Jesus was in the boat with them. This was the first time. As a matter of fact, you know what? I think that even though it was back in the first century, I think they have a video of this actually happening. So let's check that out and see actually what happened from somebody that was taking a video of this thing. You're just blown away by what Jesus did, and you just start busting out laughing. Can't you see that happening? Anyway, I don't know if that actually happened, the laughing part of it. But they said, what kind of man is this that even the wind and the sea... What if there was a big storm and I went outside and I said, wind, stop, and it stopped? What would you be saying? You'd be saying, what kind of man is this? But that was the first time. By the second time, this was the second time, Jesus walks on the water. Peter gets out there. They get back in the boat. Jesus said, okay, calm down. The storm stops. And they say, they're not just saying, what kind of man is this anymore? They're saying, this is the Son of God. And they worshiped him. They realized, no man has control over the weather. They can try to predict it, but you don't have control over the weather. And you know what happened next? It said immediately, they were halfway across, and immediately they got to the other side. Immediately they got to the other side. They were in one place, and Jesus said, go to another place. And they figured out a way to get there. But Jesus said to them, you guys didn't even learn the lesson of the loaves? It was just yesterday. Remember, there was 15,000 people. They didn't have anything to eat. And I broke bread until there was enough to feed them, and you didn't learn anything from that? That didn't happen to impress you? Now you're getting out and all of a sudden you think I'm not thinking about you? So you didn't learn the lesson of the loaves. I fed that many people with bread and fish. And so they get to the other side, and all of a sudden when they get to the other side, it's morning by then, and everybody starts coming out and they're saying, that's Jesus. And so they started spreading the word. And all of a sudden, thousands of people were coming to Jesus to get healed. Jesus was thinking about let's not stay here where it's comfortable, where we can come and we can worship and all that stuff. You need to go out there. You need to figure out how to get there from here, because you can't stay here and still follow my directive. So you have to figure out a way to get out there and bring the word out there. Now I'm going to tell you one more thing, and then we're going to try and wrap this up, because we have to have some pizza. Okay? So here's the last thing I'm going to tell you. So they got there, and they hadn't figured out that you need to trust Jesus to obey what he says and then believe that he's going to come through. And so a while later, after Jesus had risen from the dead, he went up to heaven and the Holy Spirit was in them. There was this guy, same guy, Peter. What did Peter do? Remember what he did on the water? Jules? He went for a walk on the water, right? But Jesus said, you don't have much faith. But it was in the book of Acts in chapter 4, it says that Peter was preaching and 5,000 men put their faith in Christ. He was preaching in just one session, 5,000 men put their faith in Christ. Do you think any women did? Probably another 5,000 women. How about any kids? Let's say another 5,000. Does that remind you of anything at all? Any story at all? The feeding of the 5,000, Jesus gave them bread, but now Peter gave them the bread of life. He gave them Jesus, and they believed in Jesus. They put their trust in Jesus, 5,000 of them. Now, when the 5,000 people were fed, right, and then the disciples got in the boat, did they get themselves in trouble? Were they in trouble when they were in the boat? Was there a storm? Were they just about thrown out of the boat? Were they scared to death? Okay, now, Peter, he might have been thinking back, I remember when Jesus fed 5,000, and now 5,000 people came to Christ. They received the bread of life. And so he might have been thinking, you know what? Now that happened, I'm probably going to have some trouble. Because that's the next thing that happens. No big deal. God will take care of it. So he got arrested. Come on up here, Miguel. He got arrested. Him and a couple other guys. All right, you're in jail. But before they put him in jail, they beat him. They beat him. They took a whip and they beat him 40 times. They say they beat him a bunch of times, and the other guys, they beat them, and then they said, now get in jail. And they put him in jail. He was in jail. But God busted him out of jail. Do you know that? He got out of jail, and he was out. And guess what he did? Guess what Peter and his buddies did after they let him out of jail? They went back to the middle of town, and they started preaching the gospel. You can sit down. You don't have to act anymore out. He's a good actor. Okay. And so guess what the leaders did, the Jewish leaders did after that? they arrested him again. And they beat him again. And then they brought him before a group of people, and they said, we thought we told you not to preach, not to say anything about Jesus, not to say anything about the bread of life. And what were you doing? Exactly opposite of what we told you to do. You're in trouble. But Peter said this: I obey God rather than man. Say it to me. Okay, so he's an actor. Come and stand up here and say it to me like you mean it.
I obey God rather than man.
Okay, thank you very much. He almost intimidated me there. Okay, that's what Peter said, and then he went out and he started preaching. Okay, because he knew if you obey God, you're going to get trouble. You're going to have some storms, and that storm is just so that God can prove himself big, powerful, so that more people will believe. So here's the last thing I'm going to say to you. I just have a few ideas, and they might not be that good. But there's some places around here called middle schools and high schools and junior colleges around here where a bunch of people get together. And for some reason, we found out that like when we have lunches there and bring pizzas, they all show up. And I don't know if you guys had any ideas, but I have a feeling that God could do something in those middle schools and those high schools to give you a chance to share the bread of life with people. I think you could do it. I think you can be the 2% that gets to see the big results instead of the 98% that doesn't get to see the results. So the last thing I want to tell you, and I'm guessing how many people here have ever read or read the book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Anybody ever read it? Has anybody ever watched the movie? Okay. In the movie, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it's symbolic, right? So who is the lion? Jesus is the lion, right? And they're always saying this about Jesus, the lion's name is Aslan. Fred, you probably didn't know that. Did you know that? They're always saying something about Aslan. What is it they're saying? Aslan is on the move. He's on the move. They're always saying Aslan is on the move. I want you to know Jesus is on the move. And his move is to reach people that don't know Christ. You can be in on it or you can miss out on it. The question is, can you stay here and still be obedient to Christ? Can you stay here or do you have to go there? I don't know how you're going to do it. It's a problem, but somehow or another, if Aslan is on the move, if Jesus is on the move, you can't stay here. You got to figure out a way to go there. And I know some of you are more creative than I am. Jesus sent some people out on a boat to go there, right? And it's not going to be easy. But in order to obey the prime directive, you can't stay here. You got to go there.